Hi everybody. In this video we're gonna be talking about a passage from the last movement of the Serenade for Strings by Dvorak, and to be more specific, it's the passage that begins with measure 90 and it goes up until letter E or measure 113. Just like with other passages, we're looking first to assess what are the challenges with it. So it goes, we can see already it's under a lot of 16th notes, a lot of notes to play at a fast tempo. So we can already narrow down the challenges to notes that would eventually involve some shifting, string crossings, and of course tempo. It goes by quite fast. Once we establish that, we go back and we try to figure out a fingering that works for us. Now, when we figure out the fingering, we're looking for patterns in the notes, whether the notes repeat or we're keeping the same intervals. They go in sequence, higher or lower. Yes, of course, we have to establish where do we actually need to shift. So we're looking for places like in this passage, for example, measure 102 will need to play higher than the first position. Whether it's second or third, it remains to be seen. Those are pretty much the two options there. Now, of course, we're also trying to minimize the amount of shifting to be able, first of all, to play this passage up to tempo. Once we established fingerings that we're starting with, and they're not set in stone, we can obviously always change for something that might work better, we can find further down the road. We start to work a little bit on intonation, and intonation always practice slower with longer notes, just to make sure we know how this passage should sound like, other than just listening to a recording, which is great. It's also it's good, but it's not gonna be enough, obviously, in establishing good intonation. When we get to shifts, practice the shifts slowly, and it's always a good idea when you're practicing a shift, if the notes aren't slurred, and in this case, in this passage, they are not slurred, to slur the notes that are involved. So that would be the arrival note and the note one or two notes before the shift. So let's take a look at the passage at 102, measure 102. It's actually the end of 101 going into 102. That's actually where I shift to the third position. I'll be playing this slowly for you. So we'll start from the second beat of 101. Let's see. Right, so that's where I shift. I shift on the last note of measure 101 to 102. And of course, you may feel comfortable shifting in a different place. But the point I'm trying to make here, I'm trying to show you how to practice if one of the shifts is misbehaving for you. So I would be doing, so that I'm shifting between the two F sharps. I would be playing from the beginning of the second beat, or maybe from the second note. Let's see, from the B. And I'm slurring those notes right from the B. And I'll do that faster. And then with the written bowings. And after that, I would connect this to the beginning of that measure, the beginning of 101. Right? I had another shift at 101 that got me to half position there. So that's as far as the getting the notes and shifting. Now, getting the notes, we all have to keep in mind the fingers have to be very close, staying close to the string. If they're not already down, they should stay close to the string so that we're going to have an easier time bringing the passage up to tempo. That's the third challenge that I mentioned earlier. For string crossings, when we practice the string crossings, again, we're looking for patterns, and I would be practicing, of course, slower, just like for the notes, again, by smaller fragments, 1-2 measures at a time. Whenever I have an issue with string crossings and I have a passage that involves separate bow strokes, I always try to remind myself to practice that particular passage open strings, so that my brain knows where does my bow need to go. Open strings, not just open strings, any open strings, the strings that I am playing those notes on. So for example, let's take measures 94 and 95. Those are actually identical, right? I would be, after I establish my fingering and I know what notes I'm playing there, I would be giving a break to my left hand and just focus a little bit on what I'm supposed to do with the bow as far as string crossing. So I'll be playing just on open strings, those 2 measures. And after I do that a couple of times, then I would be putting the fingers down, then play it as written, still slower pace. And this way, after practicing open strings a few times, each passage when I bring the fingers on, it's the brain will take care of the string crossings pretty much on automatic mode. Other things that are helpful for dealing with string crossings, and we have a lot of string crossings in this particular passage. One is make sure that we are not playing too close to the bridge. We don't need to play too closer to the bridge anyway, because this passage is written in pianissimo. It has a crescendo, but then again pianissimo subito pianissimo at 102. So we don't need to play that loud, right? So we'll keep the bow maybe slightly closer to the fingerboard, not above the fingerboard, because things can get a little bit unclear there, right? But somewhere here, let's say, right? So if I do the same open strings there, now if I play that closer to over the fingerboard, the sound is not very clear. It's not very pleasant to listen to. Right here, where we're closer to the bridge, the angles are much steeper, and I need to work a lot harder for the string crossings. I even missed the D there. So that's another thing that can help us with dealing with so many string crossings that we have. Let's see, what else? Yeah, also, because this particular passage would normally need to get with the bow slightly off the string, we have to make sure that it's really not going that far off the string, right? So that, because the further we go, the harder it is to control. So again, let's do the same exact 2 measures, open strings. For dealing with the tempo challenges, that's pretty much part of the other 2. the notes with the shifts and the on one hand and the string crossings on the other. So you need to practice slower by fragments. Keep the fingers close to the string, left hand fingers close to the string. Bow, if it's getting slightly off, it should be just slightly, so not too far. And very small bow strokes. We try to keep the motions at minimum. Also, keep in mind, play softly. Everything is pianissimo. There's only a crescendo, very small crescendo, and even if we don't try too much, that crescendo is going to happen anyway. It's very important that we come back at subito pianissimo at measure 102.